Good morning. So in this video, I'd like to show you what I've been looking at with invoicing. And I think invoicing will help with a few issues that we've been discussing via email. So the first thing I want to look at is we've had some booking activity feed. We know that yesterday, Chris Richards created his own booking for the 21st of the 7th. So we've put an automatic feed between the booking system and an invoice system so that we can see what Chris actually did in that integration with invoicing. So we'll look at that in a moment. I'll close this down. What we know is that the booking system will allow bookings, but we have an issue with cancellations when a booking was raised, allowing for some cooling off period for a booker to change their mind, and also how do we get around the issue of what happens if we enable self-service so that users can create bookings and cancel bookings themselves. So if we look at settings in the booking system at the moment and we look at our cancellation policy, what we've got is a cancellation rule that says users can only cancel their bookings up to a certain number of days before the event start. So at the moment that's 168 hours, which is 7 days. So even though a user can create a booking, they can cancel it anytime they want within 7 days of the start. The 7 days start time is there really to protect that they don't cancel immediately before and we can't get a replacement booking. That's the reason why it's there. But it doesn't provide configuration for a cooling off period. So if you want to allow a user to create a booking but then cancel it within 7 days of them making that booking, then there's no configuration to support that. If they do cancel a booking and it's outside this 7 days before the start, we won't know they've actually created that booking, because once a booking is cancelled, that booking is gone under the self-service mode. So we need to look at something else. So as we said before, Scheduler comes with a bulk of integrations, many of them for email, spreadsheets, accounting, whatever. And we're using these with the iCal feed at the moment. But we can also look at an invoicing package. So let's just take a look at Invoice Ninja. Invoice Ninja is free. It gives you lots of management capabilities and automation that we can look at using within the overall end-to-end system. So this is the dashboard. This shows you when your invoices have been created, but we've had no payments logged in the system yet, so there's no payments. It's just a flat line. You can choose what you want to look at. You can look at by week, by month, whatever. Set your own timescale, but let's just focus on this month at the moment, and we'll go into the weekly view. We can actually go into the daily view. So the daily view will show us what bookings we've got on particular days throughout July. So to create an invoice, there's a couple of things you need. First of all is the client. So we have a client list. This is the client list that has been imported from the booking system. Absolutely searchable. You can filter on, say, slipstreamers. It's a good example. So there's the Slipstreamer account. The Slipstreamer account currently has bookings to the value of £5,595. If we go in to look at this user in more detail, it shows what its balance is, and it will show us a list of invoices. Now, the invoices currently are day by day. So when the booking is to start, you can look at one of these. Okay, so that's the invoice details for this. Now, I've had a few issues with dates on upload. Some things I had to resolve because it expected a US date and I was using a UK date and so on. So I've had to do some corrections, but I can always strip the data out and start again if required. So that is an invoice view. So we've got clients, we've got invoices. Again, invoices ordered by invoice number. This is the invoice date, which represents the date of the booking. Okay, so we've also got products. Now our products reflect the product in Schedder. So if we go to our spaces, for instance, we'll look at our, not that one, we'll look at our spaces. So we'll see that circuit hire has a product code of 33822, classroom as 338223, and main hall as 338224. So when we look in here, these have been auto-created from the invoice values. So we've got 338223, 338222. And these values have been activated as part of the invoicing process. So these haven't, if we get something for the main hall, it will create another one automatically. So that's the good thing. We don't have to manage the product so much. But obviously, a product has a value, an ID, and a description. How is this created? Well, before we go into that, let's look at the invoice. The invoice has a status of sent. And what that means is that when the invoice is sent, it doesn't mean it's actually sent anywhere. It's just a status, which has moved that from draft into a real status. It's taken the amount of the invoice and added it to the balance, the client balance. If you don't specify sent, then the amount will still be there, but it won't be added to the balance until you decide to send it on. So let's have a look at quickly at Chris's invoice. So Chris created the last invoice because it was an automatic entry. So Chris's balance looks like this. I set it to sent automatically, and it's generated a line item within the invoice, and it's given it a units cost. This is for the classroom, and it's just one booking on this date. So let's just take a look at this for a moment. This is an easy way to add any levies. Let's say this was a circuit booking and he was originally invoiced for £75, but he had 50 participants, which means he's due another £75. So in this case, we could add a levy, and we could say user fee, and we could give that another £75. In fact, we can actually say that the unit cost is 3 and the additional value to be paid is 25 units. So that's £75. So that's automatically added up the value. We could save the invoice, we could email the invoice. But for the moment, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reject that. So we'll leave that. So it leaves it as it is. There's his invoice. Now we can download his invoice. We can take a look at it. This is invoice 1034. We've got a logo in there. We've got some details. We've got some his balance due. We've got what it is and the amount owed. So that's automatically prepared into a PDF file that can be sent on. Let's just take that away at the moment. Because we've got a number of options. you can look at email templates. So if you set the settings so that on a booking, the email is automatically sent, you have a template here which allows you to give a subject, and we look at the preview here. So this is a new invoice from Hillingdon Cycle Circuit. These are sample values, but client name, so in this case it would be Chris Richards if it was emailed. To view your invoice or amount, click here. So you click there and it'll take you to view the invoice. It's not doing it on this sample, but that's what this is what the email will be sent to the client. And within that, you can specify your payment terms and anything else that you want to do. This is a template that is free to augment with anything that you want. You can also set payment reminders. So you've got different choices, different schedules, and this will automatically keep sending out until at such time that an invoice is marked as paid. So again, I'm not going to save anything on there. I'm going to skip back. So the system isn't actually sending out the PDF, it's sending a link to the PDF, but in the body of the email you can specify anything that you want. Okay, so that's that. If we look at payments, I'll leave that for the moment because I haven't made any changes. If you look at payments, you can enter a payment against an invoice. So let's take Slipstream as an example. So we've got a payment from Slipstreamers. This is a filter of the invoices that are outstanding. We can take one of these and we can say that it's a bank transfer, payment date, we can give it transaction reference, anything that you need to store. And you can also email a receipt to the client so they know that you've received their payment and it's been paid, and you can do your reconciliation. Again, I'm going to cancel this, I'm not going to send it out. So that would manage your payments. Also on invoices, curious thing is if you take an invoice, again we'll pick on a Slipstreamer invoice, and you want a partial deposit. So that's £75, but let's say we want a £30 deposit, and we want that within 28 days. So see, we've done that. It's automatically sent a partial due value to the invoice. Now again, you might want to manage this manually. You might not want to auto send invoices because you might want to, for some clients, you might want to add a deposit value immediately as a nominal fee. Others might be full deposit. You would have to control this yourself. But again, let's skip this. We're not going to make any updates on this. So we'll leave that as is. We haven't hit the save. So that's an invoice system. You can play around with this as much as you want. I mean, there's lots of configuration options. It's free. You can you can upgrade to Pro, but Pro will just give you reports and things, additional settings. I think for basic functionality of creating invoices and sending invoices, you've got a raft of options here. But let's have a look at how we integrate. So I've created two workflows. The first one is create a client. So whenever a new user, casual user, creates a booking, it will immediately create a client in the booking system. So that's all already set on. We have two options. We can create. I've created two options. I mean, you can create as many as you like. But I've created a draft invoice with what's called search. So let's just take a look at this. and this is the workflow. So a new user makes a booking. So that's the trigger. New user booking. So new user booking comes in. Then we've got this filter, and this filter is basically saying only continue if the list of tag names contains repeat. So remember, repeat is used for identifying repeat bookers in the booking system. So if we manage our users, we'll see that we've got repeat bookings in there. But let's say that we want to treat what we call community bookers differently to commercial bookers. So we know slipstreamers, for instance. If we go into slipstreamers, we'll edit the user. We'll give it a new tag. So we'll say that this is a community user. That didn't take. I need to click the add button. That's what I didn't do. So we've now got a community user. So we'll say that Slipstream is a community and repeat, but we can handle them differently than commercial bookers. So there we are, we see community against Slipstreamers. So we can edit this filter that says only continue with this step if it's a community booker. Okay. So we just edit that to include community. For now, I'll leave it as it is, repeat, because I've got that working. We can always expand these in the future. Right, so if we test this, so the ZAP would have continued because the sample data that I'm testing with as repeat tag, so it would carry on. It's going to look up to see whether it's going to look up and basically find the account based on the email address. If it finds it, it will use it. If it doesn't, it will create it. So we should capture it in the first step, but we should catch it in the create user. But if it doesn't, then it always does it in this step. And the next thing it's going to do is it's going to create the invoice. So we can capture the values from the booking data. So we're using the ID that we captured in the search, and then we have some Boolean options. So we have the option to email the invoice. So because this is a community user, we're not going to email it. We're not going to auto bill. We're not going to download the PDF, and we're not going to mark it as sent. So that would mean that a community invoice would always be in draft mode. And that's something that you can then manage yourself. You can add different values, you can take things away, you can do whatever, but you'll see that the invoices are in draft mode and you can manage them separately. It's going to take the invoice date. The invoice date will be the start date of the booking, not the date that the user created the booking. You can change that. I mean, this is all configurable. All these are going to be pretty much blank, but then when we come down here, we've got the price from the booking, the number of occurrences, the space ID, which is going to be the product, and the list of space names. So this would be classroom, circuit, main hall, whatever. And there's loads of other values down here, but we're not going to use them. So we've done editing on that, and that is a live one. So this is for community or repeat bookers. This next one is going to create a sent invoice. So this one, the only difference is that on the filter, it's looking if it does not contain repeat. So in this case, if we use community as a tag, does not contain community. So in this case, what's going to happen is when the invoice is created, the invoice is customized slightly different in that what we're now going to do is we're going to set this to marked sent. So this will create it as a real invoice. It's not sent it anywhere, but it's going to create not a draft invoice, but a final invoice that can be sent onto the invoice, so to the client. So if you want to say yes there, it would automatically email to the client. So I've changed this now because I've made a copy and I'm saying that it's going to be sent. So if I continue, I'm not going to retest that step. I've tested it enough. I said done editing, and I'm just going to turn that API on. So now, when anybody who creates an invoice but is not in the repeat list, it will finalize that invoice and create it with the sent status. So that's the integration. As I say, that could be tweaked and changed around. You can do whatever. Let's have a look at just a few other things. So we'll take a look at slipstreamers. Again, these are the list of invoices. You've also got this view statement. So view statement, it's showing for a date range. Let's just modify that date range. Let's just modify it. So we'll say from the 1st of July, from the 1st of July to the last day of July. Okay, so that's a list of slipstreamer bookings for the month. And there's nothing else that you really need to do. There's no parsing of spreadsheets or anything like that. You could send the statement rather than send the invoice, because remember, you can also send the invoice, but you can also send the statement as well. So it's just this regular PDF document you can save as and then email on. It's entirely up to you whether you send invoices or statements. Entirely up to you. That's about it. It's full of flexibility and a great free tool, which I think will help you identify when a booking was created and when a user asks to cancel it. Because your activity is logged down here. You can see when an invoice was also created. I'm sure you'll be able to reconcile a lot better with an additional invoice tooling. But I'll leave it up to you. It's just an idea. It works. It's available to play around with. Let me know what you think. Cheers.